Welcome back to another episode of the Art of Advocacy. I'm your host, Dr. Sheldon L. Eakins, coming to you live from Idaho, Pocatello, Idaho, to be exact. Rural place. Love it out here sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes I get upset about the weather, but it's all good. I'm happy to see you, happy to be there. Feel free to say hello, those who are there. Let us know where you're watching from. Today we have a really good episode, but before we get into that, as always, can't forget, this show is sponsored by Leading Equity, becoming an advocate for all students. Shout out to all the schools and districts that I'm doing book studies with. I have been enjoying those sessions. Really good conversations coming out of that. So always excited to meet with groups. Today's special guest will be Dr. LaTisha A. Smith. Dr. Smith has always had an avid imagination. When she is not busy spending time with her family and working in her community, she is busy working as Director of Professional Development for a large urban school district in the Midwest. I'm really excited about the conversation because we're going to be talking about professional development and how should we identify professional development needs for our schools or for our districts. So Dr. Smith has a wealth of knowledge and experience. She's also an author herself, so we'll learn about the books that she has available for you as well. So I guess without further ado, might as well bring Dr. Smith on. So welcome, Dr. Smith. It is good to see you.
Thank you for having me. So I appreciate you spending time, and whoever's tuning in with us today, I appreciate you taking your time to just hear a little bit about professional development and what we have to offer today.
Let's do it. Now, I just read like 2 sentences of your bio. It's not going to tell the whole story. So before we really get into today's topic, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you currently do.
Yeah, so I am a lifetime educator. I knew that I was going to be a teacher from the time that I was a little kid playing school with my siblings. There was 9 of us. So there was always time to play and, get to exert my enthusiasm about learning and teaching and all those things. So went to college, majored in education, my master's in education, my doctor's in education. So there was no doubt in my mind about the path I wanted to take. So that's my professional journey. Been in school systems all of my life. Did a small stint in higher ed, still do some adjunct teaching for various universities. What else? So professionally, I work for St. Louis Public Schools. I'm their Director of Professional Development. I've been doing this for the last 10 years. And so, yes, a long time, but the field is always changing, always able to innovate and do new things around education, especially when the pandemic hit. We were able to do some great things around professional learning in the district, which we'll get to talk about later. Other than that, I'm a parent. I have 2 teens. So I tell people, check on those people that have teens in their life. I have 2 of them. So sometimes I look a little crazy. It's because I'm raising 2 teenagers. So check on me because sometimes I'm not okay.
Sometimes you're not okay. So are they like upper teens or younger teens? Where we're at?
Yeah, so I have a 17-year-old who's a senior in high school, trying to help him navigate what he wants to do with his life next, what university. So we've had a couple of college visits. We have a couple more planned up over the next couple of months. And then I have a 15-year-old, soon to be 16, on the 16th of October. So I'm in the throes of trying to plan her Sweet 16. She has lots of ideas about what she wants, but no budget. So, just trying to work within the reins of, her high expectations from watching all these Sweet 16s on TV. And I have to remind her, your mother is an educator. When you used to watch those shows about Sweet 16, their parents were movie stars, actors, famous rappers. I'm a teacher at heart and an educator and administrator. You're not going to have all that. There will be no car pulling up outside your party. So I just had to set those expectations right now.
So you laid it down from the very beginning. Listen, this is the budget. This is where we're at. This is how many friends you can invite. This is what so you can go around as long as you can meet these parameters. You can go as far as you want. So I'm glad that you're giving that. My daughter's 12, so I didn't even think about. I guess that's something to think about. It's gonna turn her, like I blink my eyes, she'll be 6 coming up on 16, huh?
Yes, because that's how mine was. I just figured like she was 12 the other day, and then I remember 13. And now I'm like Sweet 16. And so, yeah.
Okay. Well, I got 4 years.
You got a little bit
to worry about that. I got a little time. So, we'll figure that out. I'll have to ask you later how it all went and everything like that, especially how to do a sweet 16 on a budget.
Yes.
That's what I want to know. So
You
we'll
let me
talk
know
about
what your budget is. I do planning all day long. So if your budget's $50, we're gonna have a party with $50. And if it's $5,000, we're gonna have a bigger party at $5,000. You just let me know what the parameters are, and that's what I'll work within.
I got you. All right. Now you also have books, right? You have children's books. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so writing has also been something that I've always loved from the time I was a little kid. I was one of those weird people that you hear about. People tell you, like, if you're writing, keep a journal by your bed or keep a notebook. I was that person. I was that girl. I had lots of journals, lots of notebooks. So when ideas came to mind, I would always write things down. I really started off writing poetry, which I'm really surprised that I didn't publish a poetry book, because that's kind of how I got my humble beginnings. But from there, I just knew that I always wanted to just put out books. And so when I first started my teaching career, I did self-contained behavior disorders. So a lot of my teaching at that time centered around character education. I did a lot of trying to teach just morals and values, and just how to get along with each other, and some of those social skills that wasn't necessarily part of the curriculum, but was very important in the classroom. And it seemed like in those times we had more opportunities to kind of veer off of what was considered the curriculum and to do some new and exciting and engaging things. So that kind of became my love and my focus. So my children's book usually have some type of theme. I love for kids to read for enjoyment, but also to get something out of it at the end. So what is the lesson, or what is the activity, or what is the thought that you want them to have at the end of the book? So my books are centered around things like goal setting, diversity, honoring each other, whatever those things are. So they usually have just something, like I said, just some message or something at the end that we want them to walk away with and to build upon for their own betterment.
I love that, and I believe I saw something where your books were picked up by Scholastic. Is that correct?
So not all of my books, that would be a dream come true. So I used to write, like, you have to submit your writings to just different publishing houses. So I have a whole file cabinet. Like, people talk about how they have rejection letters. I mean, I was there. I was always trying to engage other publishing companies with my book and my content and things like that. And I would get the rejection letters, or sometimes you hear nothing at all. But, after the long struggle and all the letters, I had an opportunity to do some writing for Scholastic. And so I do have a book published with Scholastic. It's called All of Us and Then Some. It's about the family dynamics, just kind of what it's like to live in the family dynamics. It's kind of based off of my experience, but I'm sure a lot of families can relate. It's part of a 10-book set. I didn't write all 10 books, but those authors that was also tapped, we are all part of this, and it's called Our Voices, Home and Family. So it's something that's Scholastic. If you want to pick that up, I think it'll be great for not only a school setting, but also for home. So yes, that's probably one of my most exciting prized accomplishment, was finally getting a book published with Scholastic, because I grew up with those weekly readers and circling the books, and telling my mom that I needed this amount of money for the books that I circle. So to actually be amongst that great company and those great authors is definitely a life accomplishment.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Folks, if you want to learn more about Dr. Smith's work, there is the website right there on the bottom, right there on the ticker there, drlasmith.org. Feel free to jump in there after the show. Don't leave now, okay? After the show, jump in there, go to the website, learn more about Dr. Smith's work. She has some amazing books. I actually have a couple of them at my house, and so it's some really good stuff. So especially if you got kids, if you do elementary, those kind of things, I recommend you check out the books. All right. Let me take a sip of water. We're going to get into today's topic.
Sounds good. And they can go to the site now if they can multitask. But if they can't multitask, then we need them to stay right here and stay focused.
I don't know. Listen, Tish, I'm a little nervous. If folks leave and come back, this is not a guarantee. But I definitely want them to check out your work as well.
Yes.
So let's get into it, because you do a lot of professional development for your district. And so I want to ask you this. I guess I want to start off here. Do you believe that your model of professional development strategies, like how it's set up in your district, is it pretty similar or traditional to a lot of other school districts in the area that you're familiar with? Or do you think that there's some things that stick out with the work that you're doing?
I would definitely think there's some things that stick out, and not to sound egotistical or anything, but sometimes I talk with individuals who are in my area, and we share things. We have a a PLN that kind of has individual share ideas. And sometimes when I'm talking to others, it seems that we're doing things a little bit different. I think a lot of districts are doing some of the things that we did when I first started in this position, because that's what we do. We have professional development days. We tell everybody where they're going on those days. We pick the topics. We cover the topics that we're going to cover, and then they're held responsible for that information. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's always learning that we have to ensure that our teachers and educators and our staff have. But what I learned over the years, just through surveys and some different things, that it's also good to have teacher voice, and that even in professional development, there can't be a one size fit all training. We can't just have loads of people piling into a large auditorium or a gymnasium and giving them all the same learning, because people are coming into that learning experience in different modes. We have people that are brand spanking new. This is their first time really being in a formal classroom outside of their student teaching. You know, they're the show now, and they need to have the supports. And then we have people who have been in the district over 30 something years. Even when I was working on a reward system in our district, just to see, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would have never known it's this many people that have been in this district for over 30 years when I saw those numbers. And so it wasn't hundreds, but even to have over 100 was mind-blowing to me. So we have people that have been dedicated in the district for a long time. They've been through many things and seen many things. So they're not going to need the same supports and the same training delivered in the same way as maybe a brand new teacher. So we had to take all that into consideration. So one of the things we tried to do, you hear the term about MTSS, you know, multi-tiered systems of support around different elements for kids. Well, we developed our own multi-tiered system of support for professional development. So we have, you know, tiered levels of support from foundational to targeted to comprehensive. So depending on where you are in your journey will depend on where you kind of start your professional development journey in the district, and then what supports we're able to provide to you.
Okay. So when you say that you get, so how do you gauge that? Do you do a survey for all your staff and then they click, okay, I'm a first year teacher, or oh, I'm a bus driver, or like, is how does this survey create I guess comprised of in order to get that data that you need so that you can kind of make sure that a specific development that's coming in?
Absolutely. So topics are picked in a variety of ways. So the main way that we kind of center around what our main topics for professional development is our needs survey. So we do a lot of surveying in this district. We survey them before the professional development year starts, at the end of the previous year, to kind of say, hey, how was your professional learning for you? What things stuck out? What things were you able to apply immediately? How did this impact your student learning and growth? Do you feel like the district partnered with you in your own growth? What are some additional topics that we need to, address? What are some things that you personally need to be at your personal best in your classroom or for your particular content area? So I know a lot of times individuals feel like I'm always taking surveys, who's really reading this, who's really implementing these things. What we really try to make sure people understand about in St. Louis Public is that we read the information. Once I get survey data, I share it with the teams. We're combing through it. We're trying to figure out which things are things that are immediately in our control that we can adjust, and then what are some things that are more long-term that we have to think about a little more intensely around planning what we have to do and what our next steps are. So those surveys provide us a great amount of information about what we're going to do and what we're going to plan and how we're going to plan that information. And if an organization chooses to survey their staff, you have to allow them to know, understand, and believe that you are really going to do something with that survey data. Otherwise, they won't be honest. They won't believe. They would say, like, why should I take this? They didn't implement any of the changes that anybody said. So we really try to make sure that they know. And sometimes even when I stand before them, I'll just try to call certain things out. I'll say, you said in your survey that you needed more time when we rolled out professional development that was online, these online modules. Well, we heard you. And by hearing you, this is how we're going to change. Now we're going to make sure that when we roll out anything that you have to do on a self-paced basis, you're going to have at least 2 weeks to do that. We're going to let you know when it launches. We're going to let you know at the close of business what time it is. We want to let you know that if you have time in between that something may have occurred. Here's who you reach out to for an extension. Here's a different timeline for people who started after this particular date. So we're always trying to be aware and cognizant that we can't always have everybody on the same timeline, the same schedule, the same start and stop, and the same expectations around where they should be at the end if they didn't start off in the same place in the beginning.
Okay, so when you get those surveys coming in and you take you have your teachers say, okay, these are some of the areas that I would like to get some support in. And do you just kind of take the majority, or is there maybe you have a multi-year plan. It's
Yep.
okay. These trainings kind of fit in line with what we're trying to do. Like, how does that work out for you?
So we do have a multi-year plan. When I first started the district, we would do an annual plan, and that didn't seem like it was conducive to let people understand the long-term range plan for professional development. One of the things we wanted to make sure people understood was this is not just something you do this year and then it goes away. We want you to know that we look at professional development on a continuum. This is something that, is not going to go away. You're going to continue to need professional development and growth during your whole entire stance of your professional career. So that was one thing. So we moved to the 5-year plan. Now, granted, we understand that times have changed. So in the middle of our 5-year plan, did we ever and could we have ever known that we would be in the middle of a, international pandemic? No, we didn't. So of course we had to make some adjustments to what we stated in the plan, what we initially thought the plan was going to be about. We had to add lots of technology integration, lots of helping teachers become virtual teachers. So those were some shifts we had to make even in our own plan. So yes, once we have that plan, we were constantly making sure that we adjust and adapt. So you asked about majority. Sometimes we do go by majority. We may say, hey, a lot of people said that they are still struggling with this new curriculum that we implemented, whether it's a math curriculum or ELA. We need to make sure we're definitely front loading a lot of additional sessions on that. We will need to have something that's tier 1 that's introducing people to the resource, because we have a lot of new teachers coming in. They've never even opened this resource, let alone know what it is. Then we have people that have been here. They were here for the first year of the rollout. They want to know some additional things. How can I implement some additional strategies? How do I differentiate it more? So those are our tier 2 people. Then we have people that are more comprehensive. They've been here. They've worked with the system and they are still struggling. They need for our curriculum specialists, for our PD team, for somebody to go in and be able to give them either some small group or some one-on-one intensive learning around this particular topic. So that's how we get a lot of our main topics and how we put it on that tier level of support. Then we also look at some secondary topics. So we see some things that's always reoccurring for us. There's always somebody who needs support around classroom management. There's always someone who wants to know about diversity, equity, inclusion, cultural responsiveness, and all of that. So for the listeners who may not know, we are a large urban school district, so our student population looks one way, but just because of how teaching is nowadays, we know across the country there's a shortage of minority teachers. So our teaching staff does not look like our student staff. So a lot of teachers are cognizant about that and how do they relate to children and things like that, which is why we work with Dr. Eakins, who comes in and gives us a lot of information, a lot of good strategies, and that's what they want. They love hearing the great keynotes, and they can go on YouTube and hear information, but they like the working with me closely one-on-one like we got with Dr. Eakins, because he gives them things they can implement immediately. When you hear and see in your classroom that kids are using racial slurs with one another, whether they're the same race or not, or within race or against each other's race, what do you do? And so a lot of them walk away from those sessions like, man, that is something that I can do immediately. I don't have to feel this way being a Caucasian teacher with an African-American student. This is something that allows me to say what I need to say, get the results I need to get, and still allow them to keep their dignity. And I don't feel like I'm changing or being, what people might call fake or, out of my element by doing those things. So we always want to make sure that people have things that they feel like they can apply immediately to their practice. And that's one of the things we asked them on their survey. Was this information that you could apply immediately to your practice? How did this change, your pedagogy? Did this immediately have a change in your classroom? Do you feel like the district partnered well with you on this learning for this session? What could we have done better? What do we need to consider for next time? Because, our next PD day or PD days are coming up. So how we implement some of those additional sessions is we have what we call ongoing booster sessions. So we have the designated district PD days that we're trying to think of this comprehensive tiered support plan, but ongoing, we have booster sessions, and those booster sessions happen all the time in a variety of ways. There are some that can happen before school. We have lunch and learns. We have after school professional development booster sessions. We have some that's virtual. We have some that's asynchronous. We have webinars. So we're trying to make sure, as I always say, we are trying to attack it by land, air, and sea. We're trying to leave no stone unturned and making sure that we're meeting everybody where they are in their professional learning journey. And then how can we make it better? How can we improve upon it? So there's just, like I said, there's no limit to what we're willing to do. When we have people tell us about different things, I had somebody said, I'm interested in doing something more around dyslexia. I've gone through this training. I think I can offer something. And I said, well, let's do it. I said, how about you put this information on some virtual modules that we can push out through our frontline system. I'm going to give you a stipend for doing that. And then we have this information that we can use on an ongoing basis, because if you're interested in dyslexia and you've gone through this magnificent training, there's somebody else who wants this information. So we're always trying to be accessible to what individuals want, and then not always, give the, well, no, we can't do that. I'm going to try to find a way. So if you ask me something, you come to me with something, we're going to be, everything that you need for your professional learning and growth journey. I even had somebody said, we have a teacher who needs some more strategies to use directly in art for behavior. And I said, you know what? I don't have anything right now, but I'll have something for you. And to that person, by the end of the week, I'm going to find some resources. I'm going to find some articles. I'm going to find some videos and things they can do immediately. And then we're going to follow up with that teacher. I can do a classroom observation and see, what additional things we can do from a PD lens, from a PD perspective, to make sure that teacher feels supported. Because that's another thing when we think about retention. That's right there to me. I'm like, if my teachers or our teachers in our district don't feel supported, they don't feel like the resources are accessible to them, or if the resources are accessible, they don't know how to use them. What's going to happen? We're going to lose them. They're going to go somewhere else where they feel like their needs are being better met and people are being more responsive to their needs. I don't ever want a teacher to leave and they say on the survey, the exercise, well, why'd you leave? Well, I felt like I didn't learn anything and the professional development was not helpful. I say, if you see the word professional or development together in any of your exit surveys, you let me know, because we need to know what we need to fix around, making sure everybody's learning and growing and developing the way that they need to, because it's not about us. At the end of the day, I work so hard for professional development because it's about the student. If our teachers are not the best at their practice and they're not giving the best to their students, which means our students can't be their best or at their best if they're not receiving the best instruction, the best interactions, the best strategies, the best coping skills, all of that. So that's why I get really, excited about professional development, because I know that professional development can take a mediocre teacher to a good teacher to a great teacher, and a great teacher to a distinguished teacher. So I just don't underestimate the power of professional learning and growth for anybody's journey. And so I'm always trying to find out where people's journeys are so that I can move them to the next level in the journey, because all of our kids deserve it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I love how you utilize like folks who have talents and they say, "Hey, Dr. Smith, I have this talent, or I just went through this training and I want to be able to present this." So I love that you encourage within your staff the opportunities to be able to present and be a part of the learning process. I think that creates a lot of buy-in. I can just imagine, like, if I have a colleague teacher who's presenting a session, obviously I know this individual, I'm more likely to want to go to their session to support them and those kind of things. So that makes a lot of sense. Do you do some trainings as well? Like, do you have like a go-to session that you host?
I don't do it as much as I used to, but I used to do pretty much around anything. So I said, like, our academic instructional coaches, sometimes you have to be a jack of all trades. And most of the times I can do enough research to do justice to a topic. But I can't really say that any topic is my, I guess, my best, except for like English language arts and math were my strongest subjects just all through life in high school. So I can pretty much do very good justice to those. But I don't claim to really be able to do science. And sometimes, remembering all those dates, I might have a war on the wrong date and in the wrong location. So I don't try to do history too much. But like I said, if we're talking about just regular strategies and things like that, then that's always my go-to. I can always do just strategies you can use across any topic, because my background being in special ed, that's kind of what we did. We had to make sure that we were able to adjust and adapt to any learning environment and find the ways to reach any particular child. So that's kind of been what my best practice is. But like I said, I can probably do justice to most things, but I don't claim to do that though. And that's not what I want to do. So kind of what you were saying about leaning into people's strengths and talents. We do a lot of that. We have a lot of individuals who are presenters in the district. And that's for two reasons. Number one, we are a large district. We have about 3,000 staff members. So when it comes to trying to partner sometimes with an outside organization, if they want to come in and do PD for, groups of 25 to 30, you do the math on that. You take about 3,000 people divided by 25, carry the one, as they say. That's a lot of money, so as a cost effective way, we can't afford to do that as for all topics. So we do have a lot of trainer, a lot of lean into people who have mastered the content. We try to identify, who are those distinguished teachers in our district that we can lean into, that we can have people visit their classroom, that we can ask to be professional development people. So whenever there's somebody who wins like Educator of the Year in the district, you best believe I'm congratulating them in the email. And I'm also saying we would love for you to be a PD presenter in the district to share your skills and talent with those, who are trying to aspire to win this, prestigious awards such as you. So we're always trying to tap into, because I don't claim to know everything. I'll be the first to tell you, I can't do nothing about food and nutrition because I don't honor it myself. So you don't want me there, but I can find you somebody. I can make sure we partner with the organization that can bring that. I can make sure we find a level of support that's going to meet you where you are with this particular topic.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I'm working with I've worked with your school district in the past, pre-pandemic, and then I'm currently doing some work with your group as well. But I'm leading equity. I do equity work. Where does diversity, equity, and inclusion fit within professional development for St. Louis schools?
Everywhere. I mean, you can't really talk about, really meeting the needs of these students without recognizing the diversity that's within the district and trying to make sure that we adapt to it. As I said, our student population looks a lot different than the people that stand before them on a daily basis. So we try to have to make sure that it's infused in pretty much what we're doing and how we're having conversation, just to even make sure that in our interactions that we are being cognizant. I learned so much in a professional development I did yesterday about even terms that we use that in my life I just didn't know. Like, and I feel like once you know better, you do better. And sometimes I don't fault people on their journey for not knowing and doing things that's kind of like a oops, or that's embarrassing, or I shouldn't have done that. It's okay. It's now that you know this information, you've learned this, what are you going to do that's better? So I saw a couple of words in that PowerPoint. I'm like, I have said that so many times. And now I'm going to do better not to say those things, because now that I know the context and the content and how offensive it is to the people that was made about or towards, I'm not going to do that. So I have to take ownership of what I'm learning when the new learning comes my way. So yeah, it's just things like that. I think once we know better, we do better, and that's what I'm hoping that people do from their learning journey here in the district.
Okay, yeah. Once you know better, you do better. At least that's what we hope, right? Because not everybody follows that rule, but
They don't.
yeah, we
And
hope
something
so.
you said, sometimes you can't make people stop saying a particular thing,
Mhm.
but hopefully you're giving them something to even to think about, to grapple with, to maybe even question something. Like you said, if you have a problem with this or this makes you uncomfortable, maybe you need to kind of investigate. Well, why do I feel this way? Why am I uncomfortable? And maybe that may teach you something additional about yourself. We don't know when everybody's going to have their own reckoning, but we hope at some point that you do, if it's going to do something that's going to make you better on behalf of students. So I can't say what you do in your personal life and what you do at home, but when you stand before our kids, we hope that you are at your best for them.
Mm, say that again. Hope that you're at your best for them. Well, that's all we can ask for, and I've talked about it in my book, in the chapter of modeling vulnerability and humility. The thing about it is we deal as adults, as educators, we deal with stuff in our personal lives. We got stuff going on. We dealing with the pandemic the way we're dealing with the pandemic, and then we got to come to school and be at our best.
Yep.
And the reality is it's not always possible to be at our best, and we have to be okay with that. I think mental health has been a challenge sometimes because, as educators, you think, oh man, if I call in sick, then there's got to be a sub. But I know we're short on subs, and so what happens if I don't come into work? Then who's going to fill my spot? Like who's going to be in my classroom? And so I don't want to cause any more further headaches. And so we put those kind of things first, and then we don't take care of ourselves, our mental health, and all those kind of things. And so as a result, we cause more stress on ourselves, which reflects onto the students, which makes me wonder, like, does any of your professional development include any maybe social emotional learning or any type of mental health strategies for our educators to make sure that they're at the top of their game?
Absolutely. So the district has partnered with, several organizations to bring some of that more social emotional learning. We partner with Thrively and Sown to Grow, just some of those other organizations that some people may have heard of or not, just to make sure that, to the extent possible, like you said, we can't all be perfect, but are we well or well enough to execute what we need to do on a regular basis? And so we do have a lot of social emotion. We do a lot under leadership around that work-life balance. We infuse a lot of that social emotional learning for our leaders, even in their summer leadership institute where everybody was together before the school year starts. We had a room that was there the whole day that they can go in and do yoga. She taught them deep breathing. She taught them, mindfulness, all those things, so that you can take those practices back. So when you have those stressful days at work, you remember to breathe. You remember all those, poses and stances that she told you, that you can do from a chair, that you can do from standing on a wall, how you can lean and stretch, all those things that help clear your mind to get you at least to that next moment. And you said something about, like, sometimes we can't give our best and bring our best. And I'm totally human. I recognize that. I tell people all the time, when they say I'm sorry about something, like, you don't have to apologize. We're human. We make mistakes, as long as we learn from them. And sometimes you're right. I have not been at my best. There's been periods in my life where I've gone through things personally and professionally that I could not, for everything within me, bring my best. But what I've always tried not to do was to give anybody my worst. I know that there were times that I could, I could lash out because I was angry inside because of something that was going on with me. That I could be mean or short with someone because I was angry on the inside because of something that was going on with me. So I try not to do that. And I can remember specifically one time it was a lot going on. This guy at work came and asked me about, some receipt transaction, and I was not the kindest in my response. Now, granted, I wasn't cursing or anything, but I know that I did not give my normal smile and my normal, I'll get that to you, my normal. So once I recognized that, I had my moment. What did I do? I got up out my seat. I went to him because I had to heal that. I had to, resolve that. And I said, you did not deserve that. I said, what you got was something that I brought home from home that I shouldn't have. And I apologize to you. And he said, I really appreciate that. And then I left it at that. I wasn't trying to, beat the dead horse or whatever. I hope that's not one of the terms that I shouldn't be saying. When I I wasn't trying to, I wasn't trying to, just keep going on and going on with something. But I did want him to know that I was sorry. And then I moved on from there. I said, you have to get yourself together because it's not fair for you to bring something that had nothing to do with that gentleman, into the work that he has to do on a daily basis. You know that this man works in finance. He got to ask you about receipts. So why are you cutting up, LaTisha? So sometimes I have to check myself. So even though I wasn't at my best, I never want to bring my worst. So I have to keep remembering that. And I just encourage us to do that. Yes, you might not be your normal smiling self, but don't give someone all the hurt, anger, pain that you may be bringing for someone else because they don't deserve that. So,
I think it's funny, just off topic a little bit, but it's funny how you're paying attention to your phrases now. For folks that are watching, I did a training with the St. Louis schools yesterday, and so we were talking about racial slurs, and so I like to present like various words that terms that we utilize a lot that we didn't know may have had some racist origins behind them. So it's just funny to hear you like catching yourself like, should I say beat a dead horse?
I don't know if that was on the list, but I'm like, if it was, just call me out because I'm trying to do better.
It wasn't on the list. It wasn't on the list. I'm glad that you do have those options available for your staff. And I would imagine a lot of us as educators who have, who work in schools have had those moments where it's like, yo, like you said, I don't want to give my worst, right? But I'm not 100% this today. But I don't want to give my worst. So I'm glad you brought that up. I want to ask you this. With professional development, it sounds like most of the professional development is on. I
think we're having a little bit of connectivity issues, so hopefully he comes back on if you all can still hear me. Or I'll just have to interview myself. I don't know where he was going with the question, but if he was asking, is most of it on district-wide professional development days. That is the crux of what a lot of our time is, and that's to set aside time where we know we don't have students, that we can make sure that everyone is engaged in professional development, but we do have a lot that's not just on those particular days. I just started interviewing myself, so if you want to go back and ask your question, please do. Now I can't hear you, so not yet.
Test.
Okay, when you go live, you never know.
Technical difficulties. I hit a button down below. I think I turned my power outlet. It was on me.
It's okay. I just kept talking. So if anybody was still here with me, I just answered the question I thought you were going to ask me, and we kept going. So that's how you do it in professional learning. You got to keep sticking and moving. So I'll let you ask your question and I'll answer it.
Good looking out. I think the question that I was going to ask was, with the professional development, how are you measuring? Oh, no, I know what it was. I was asking you, so is most of the professional development on a individual like skill set? Like, so this is more for teachers or educator who have staff members. This is for your skills. Do you do work that is like maybe school wide as well, or is it primarily individually based?
No, it's all that. So we have the district-wide PD days, which I was telling the audience about, that we kind of have set aside where we know that there's no kids engaged for the day. So we have the opportunity to, we are what we call cohorts. So I'm in a cohort of learners for that particular year. So if my cohort chose to learn more about reading writing workshop, around word studies, around some math skill, then that's what we're going to learn. That's the learner we're going to push out. But I almost forgot your question. Can you tell me again? I started talking about that.
The question was, do you do school-wide
School-wide,
professional
yes, yes,
development?
yes. And we also have what we call site-based professional development, because we have some schools that have a particular theme. We have social justice theme for some schools. One school is like a business theme. We have a school that's the Academy of Law. We have a bioscience school for those interested in STEM and medical fields. So some of our schools have a particular designation. So of course, there needs to be opportunities for those schools to engage with their content or their designation or the things that made that school that particular theme in the first place. So we do have additional site-based PD days where there's kind of school-wide focus on whatever it is for that school. One school's focus may be literacy. One school's focus may be family engagement. One school's focus could be around behaviors or their PBIS system or restorative practice. So they do communicate what those topics will be for the year that they're going to push on to their network superintendents. The networks have like a cluster of maybe 13 to 15 schools. And then where we are able to engage or help support, that's what they ask us to do. They may ask me or somebody from my department to come on one of those days or for one of those sessions and present on strategies for this particular content. Or they may ask somebody to come and do a session on, we have a professional development system called Frontline. They may ask them to do something on Frontline because Frontline does our mentoring, our individual professional development plans. It houses our evaluation, our walkthrough forms. So it has a lot of documentation that we keep in that system. And we want to make sure people know how to navigate it appropriately when they come into the district. So sometimes it just asks us to do different things. So yeah, there are a lot of content-based, school-based, site-based opportunities for them to push on the content that's relevant and germane to them.
Got you. Okay. I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
I think the last question that I had is just, how do we continue to make sure that the content that we're providing, whatever trainers and the development that's happening, how do we make sure that it's relevant and engaging? Because I would imagine sometimes, especially with those mandatory PDs, you're going to have a group of folks that don't want to be there. So if you were to give some tips to other folks who are, in charge of professional development or looking into doing more PD, what type of tips and advice would you give for engagement?
Absolutely. So we do a lot of what we call total participation techniques. We have an expectation for people when they engage in professional development in St. Louis Public Schools that they're going to be engaged and involved. So what we do for every PD session, whether it's virtual, whether it's brick and mortar, whether it's offsite, we have established a set of norms. So we give these to people up front. What are my professional development norms, regardless of what the setting is? We have a set for virtual PD, for brick and mortar, for offsite, for all that. So we set those expectations up front and make them available for everyone. So another thing that we do, it may sound like a bit much to somebody, but we feel like this investment is important for us. We have sessions with our presenters. So we make sure that we send them information virtually about what is best practice. We try to see what's new and exciting to research around what's current and relevant for professional learning, what's effective, what people are saying is most engaging. It could be a strategy. It could be a company. It could be an organization that's pushing out some information. And we try to share that. And then we have sessions with our presenters, because what we don't want is for people to say on their evaluation that this was sit and get. I didn't get anything out of it. It was boring. Not that we're here to spit fire and do three-ring circuses, but we do need to make sure that every session has an element where individuals are up, where they're discussing, where they're engaged, where they're actually able to do some activity, and that they have the expectation at the end of what they can implement immediately in their practice the very next day in their classroom. So there shouldn't be any guesswork about that. So we try to engage them, like I said, with those total participation techniques that we talk about in classrooms. We try to make sure that we do that in our professional development. One thing that we did this year under the leadership of our new academic deputy, our deputy of academics, however you want to term it, we did a lot of study around adult learning. And so we made sure that we infused some of those things when they talked about what was relevant for adult learning, to make sure that we looked at those things and said, okay, This is what it says about adult learning. These are the things that we feel is most relevant and important for all the professional development that we push out in a district. And this is how we need to make sure that we're incorporating those in those strategies. We need to make sure things are comprehensive. Is it targeted? What can we do that's job embedded? And then we talk about some of those things, what is going to be able to be applied immediately? Where's the opportunity for collaboration? Where's the technology integration in this PD? So there are certain things that we have the expectation that will happen in all PDs, but we know that everything on that list is not going to happen in every single PD, but we do need to make sure we're making a conscious effort to have as many of those elements in our professional development that we can. So those are the things that we try to do to make sure it's, it's engaging. And we find that if we're doing things based on that survey data, that people said that this is what I need. So if it meets their needs, if they find that it's relevant, then a lot of times they're going to automatically come with that engagement attitude. So, but are we going to get everybody 100% of the time? No, as you mentioned, nothing is ever 100%. Are you still going to have those couple of people that don't want to be there regardless of what you do? Yes, you're going to always have those, but we know that we made sure that we put our best foot forward and our best effort to make sure that we had all the elements that was going to make sure that they were engaged, involved, participated, and had something that they could apply immediately to their practice when they left the session. If you choose not to, take hold of all that valuable information, then you have nobody else to blame but yourself. And so that's one of those things that we hope, as we said earlier, it's one of those things you look at yourself and say, well, why did I not get anything out that professional development? What made me think that it was boring? Why can I not apply anything immediately when all these other people was talking about how wonderful it is? What was it that kept me from getting that same thing? So we hope that those are the things that they grapple with at night for themselves and maybe bring a better attitude, a better mindset around learning to the next session. We can only hope.
We can only hope. And yeah, we can only hope. At the end of the day, I mean, like you said, you can't get 100%. You may not get 100%.
Right.
I mean, if you are, that's great. But just understand. And I had to wrestle with that myself as a trainer. That look, I'm only going to spend an hour. Maybe I'm spending an hour and a half. Maybe I'm a half day with this group. Does not mean that everybody that leaves this space is gonna, I'm going to change the hearts and minds of everybody within, a half day or a couple hours. So I had to wrestle with that. Sometimes it takes multiple touches. So maybe I plant a seed and with someone, and then they listen to something else, or they do their own learning, or they eventually something else happens, and then they kind of their mindset changes. But maybe that was that spark from my initial session. So not everything changes overnight, but at least you have to be, and I had to be okay with that. And it was hard for me to deal with that because I was just thinking, oh no, I did the training, I got all this great feedback. But why was there still a small handful of folks that they just need a little bit more time? So
right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. And we, sometimes we can't beat ourselves up. Sometimes we are our own worst critics. But like you said, you might not have had the mass of people that change, but you might have changed one. And I believe in the power of one. One here, one there, one here, one there. And eventually we're going to see that mass. And so, you just have to believe in that power of one. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Well, Dr. Smith, I definitely consider you as providing a voice and leading equity. It sounds like you're doing some amazing work over at your district there. Where are you at as far as the 5-year plan? What year are you in right now?
We're in year 5. So we are definitely, so tomorrow is my department retreat. So one of the things on our agenda is to look at our 5-year plan and start planning for the sessions that we'll have, because we involved a lot of stakeholders in our 5-year plan, our professional development committee, the curriculum specialist, the other department heads. And so we just have to, plan our strategy about how we're going to execute and get that feedback, so that our next plan would be 2023 through 2025. 2028. See that? I told you earlier, math was one of my strong suits, and now I made y'all disbelievers, but it's okay. 2023 through 2028.
It's all good. It's all good. I'd love for you to share maybe a final word that maybe something we haven't talked about yet, but if you have any final thoughts you want to share.
Yeah, I'll just share a couple of things. And if you heard me say it once, it's okay. Sometimes as learners, we have to hear things more than once. But I just really hope that everybody takes professional development seriously. Professional development changed my life. When I first started off as a first-year teacher, like many, I struggled. I told my supervisor, get me out of here. I'm not doing this. And what she told me was, you just need professional development. You have, you have the attitude, you love the kids, you just need some professional development. And for me as a young teacher, barely 20 at the time, I was like, what you're saying is I need to go do some more school after I just left school? And she basically said, yes. And that's what happened. She had me in everything, like every learning. And I just became so excited about it because I could see how going to those sessions and the professional development was changing my practice, changing me as a teacher, probably taking me from a horrible teacher to the great teacher that I was, that the one that won awards and things like that for my teaching. I wouldn't have been able to do that, I don't believe, if she hadn't got me in professional development and the right professional development that was able to change my practice. It changed my mindset, and by my mind being changed about my own ability to be effective and be effective for kids, it changed my practice. So please don't underestimate the power of professional development. Please get your teacher voice. And if ever you can, differentiate on their behalf and make sure that you're really cognizant of their individual needs in the classroom, because at the end of the day, you want them to be their best so that we're the best for our students. So thank you all for allowing me to just have a little bit of time on your agenda today, and I appreciate it.
Oh, well, the pleasure is mine. If we have some folks that want to connect with you, what's the best way to reach you online?
Yeah, so on my site, I have a contact card. I do respond to any and everybody who responds to me, especially if you say something appropriate. There's always those messages you ignore, but I'm definitely engaging. I'm also on Instagram under Dr. L.A. Smith 1. And then I'm on Facebook. I know it's the older version of technology, but I'm still there. My Facebook page is active and I'm not taking it down. So if you want to reach me there, you can reach me there as well. But definitely reach me by my website or my contact card, and I'll definitely get back in touch. I'll answer any questions. I'll share any documents. I'm an open book. I don't believe in hoarding information. If I have something that you feel like you can use, if you want to see one of my plans, you want to see how we do our tier system of professional development, it's all yours. Just send me an email and I'll get it right over to you.
That's awesome. You hear that, folks? Dr. Smith is willing to share, and that's what we need, right? That's professional development in action, right there, as is. So yeah, feel free to reach out. And again, her website is right there at the bottom, drlasmith.org. Listen, it's always a pleasure to chop it up with you. So I appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, have a good one.
You too. All right, folks, as we wrap up today, a really good conversation with my good friend, Dr. Smith. It is, the thing about professional development, I guess if I was going to say some of the takeaways from professional development is just making sure that you're meeting individual needs. The equity within equity, if that makes sense, right? So we're talking about professional development, but where's the equity within that in addition to the content that we need to have? And I love how she said that equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion is built in. It is not an add-on. It's not a special day that we're going to do PD just on the equity stuff. No, it's built in within the professional development that they offer as is. So that's, to me, that really stuck out. I've seen some schools, some districts, they kind of separate things and things are in silos. And I love that it's all built in here. So that's great. Great news. Folks, remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving. Let's continue to be a voice in leading equity.